What up, reader fam? Today I'm bringing you another video in my Books I've Read Recently series. The series on my channel where I share with you the books I've read recently. The title itself is pretty self-explanatory. I'm actually really behind on sharing some of my thoughts on some books that I've read recently, so there very well might be another one of these videos here pretty soon. But today I'm going to be talking about 4 different books, and I'm super excited to be talking about these books today, mostly because of the fact that I enjoyed all of them. And I feel like it's been a while since I've done one of these videos, and I liked all the books that I've talked about. So without further ado, let's get started. Ba-boom! First up here I have Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa, and this book was actually the Booksplosion Book of the Month for the month of November, and we worked with Harlequin Teen. Our live show has already taken place, so if you want to see that, then I will leave a link down below in the description. This book is about this dragon that comes every 1,000 years, and in order for this dragon to grant your wish, you must have this completed scroll. But the scroll has been split into 3 pieces after someone let the power of the scroll get to their head a little bit. In this book, we follow this girl who is half human, half demon fox, aka a kitsune, and she's got one part of the scroll. Her path ends up crossing with this samurai, and he is on the hunt for the scroll. Our main girl convinces him to join her in going on this journey to find the completed scroll. But she must maintain the secret that she has one part of the scroll. Otherwise, it's game over for her. I listened to the audiobook for this when I read along with my eyeballs, because sometimes I like to do that because it like fully immerses you in the world. And that's exactly what happened. Like, talk about feeling like you're walking into a portal into this magical world. Like, that's what happened here. I was completely transported into this fictional place and it was magical. I loved this book so much more than I was expecting to. Like, the more time that I've spent away from this book, the more that I love it, the more that I think about it. Like, this is the Japanese mythology inspired book that I've been needing for so long in my life. Someone finally delivered it and it feels dang good. Thank you, Julie Kagawa. You really being a queen up in here. I really enjoyed the different perspectives that we got to see throughout this book, especially because the characters who are our main leads both are keeping secrets from each other, and there was some nice tension there. Both secrets brought in a lot of complications, and it was really nice seeing how these characters were dealing with that. While I did personally love this book, I know it's not flawless. For example, there are a few moments in this book where you just have to really be patient. When you first start the book, you're probably gonna be confused, but you have to hold on, you have to hang in there, because the more that you read, the more that these puzzle pieces are gonna come together and everything is gonna click into place. There's also a few moments where you're gonna have to be patient because it's not gonna give you all these crazy action scenes, so you're gonna have to sit still through some moments. But when those action scenes come into play, they do what they gotta do to keep your eyes glued to the page. Like, they deliver some epicness, okay? I wouldn't say that this first book is necessarily driven by the plot that much. I feel like the plot will be a bigger aspect in books 2 and books 3. This one, it was kind of like all these little subplots, but I really enjoyed that, and I really felt like the characters were in the driver's seat of this book. While there is still a very solid plot present, it's definitely more focused on the characters. I think this is something that's going to be beneficial though, because like I said, I feel like book 2 is going to be a lot more plot heavy, and it'll be nice to follow these characters that are already established. This book also feels like the starting point for something so much bigger. It's definitely a setup book for what's to come. Lastly, I think my favorite part of this book was just the atmosphere. I mean, it's pretty much just a fantastical version of Japan, and I was living for it. Overall, I think that I would give this book a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I do think there were some issues with the pacing, and I would have liked for a few more things to have been tied up in the end. But overall, this is a book that I left wanting more, which is always a good sign. Like, I need book 2 ASAP. Next up here, I have Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, and this is actually the Booksplosion Book of the Month for the month of December, and we are working with Penguin Random House. And our live show is going to be on December 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so if this book sounds interesting to you, then you should pick it up, read it, and join us for our live show. It's gonna be lit. I'm gonna give you kind of a vague description, but just know that this story has so much more to it than what I'm about to tell you. I just don't want to tell you too much. In this book, this world has been under attack for decades, and pilots are seen as heroes as they help keep the human race alive. We've got our main character Spensa, who is dying to become a pilot, but a tragic event involving her dad kind of looms over her, and nobody will let her forget it. In fact, people are all the time using it against her. But nonetheless, she keeps fighting for her dream. One day she discovers something in a tavern that could benefit her in achieving her dreams. Again, there's so much more to this book, but that's the elevator pitch for you. I honestly couldn't help but go into this book with really high expectations, and I'm really hecka happy to say that my expectations were met. King Sanderson delivered once again. He's really solidified himself as a fantastic writer, so it's really hard to go into his books not expecting greatness. I liked seeing a character that, despite all these negative things being thrown her way, and the situation that her dad had been involved in and how it messed with her future goals, how she didn't back down on the challenge of working hard to achieve her goals. She is a character that might frustrate you at times, but you also just can't help but cheer her on. You really want to see her succeed. I've only read one other book by Brandon Sanderson, and that is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, but something that was super memorable from that book was just how he built up that world. And going into this book, that was something else that I was kind of curious about, like if his world building would be present in this book. And newsflash, it's present, and it's a reminder of how good he is at world building. Excellent world building was showcased up in here, and honestly, I need to learn how he builds his world so flawlessly. I need to crack the Sanderson code. Another thing that really stuck out to me with this book was the action scenes. Like, hello, my heart was racing reading some of these. They felt so real. This book should come with a warning. Will get your heart racing. Beware. He also manages to explore a lot of really interesting topics throughout this book. Like, you're not only getting this really entertaining story, you're also getting fed messages of like how you're in control of who you get to be and how you shouldn't let the past define you. Overall, if you couldn't tell, I didn't really have anything bad to say about this book. I gave this book a whopping 5 out of 5 stars. It was great. I need to read more Brandon Sanderson. I just really need to. I also need to learn how he writes his books because what the heck, perfection. Next up I have here OTHEREARTH by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller, and because this is a sequel, I'm actually going to tell you what the first book is about. That way I don't end up spoiling the sequel. Otherworld is essentially a game where people completely leave reality and fully immerse themselves in this virtual reality world. Think Spy Kids 3. Our main character Simon heads into this game in order to find his friend Kat, but as he begins to look for her, he begins to realize that this is a lot more than just a game. It's clear that the company that put together Otherworld is up to no good. In fact, what they're up to could leave many players dead. So Simon and his friend Kat take on the mission of getting to the bottom of this, saving other players, and ultimately taking down this company. As this is a sequel, I'm gonna have to be a little vague with my thoughts here, but what I will say is that I definitely felt like this was a step up from the first book. I think the first book did a really good job of kind of giving us an understanding for the world and some backgrounds on characters and whatnot, but I think this book took it a step further when it comes to character growth, which honestly, I would have liked to have seen more character growth in book 1, but it was nice to see it in book 2. I just think that the characters grew so much more in this book, and I think a part of that was the situations that they were in. Like in the first book, I didn't care that much about the characters, but this one definitely had them growing on me a lot. Though I will say that Simon is still a very unlikable character, but that's kind of why I like him. Give us more unlikable characters, please. While I do think this book was better than the first book, I do think it lacked in some areas. Like at times, the plot just felt a little too convenient. There were a few challenges here and there, but for the most part, I needed more of a challenge. Even though the characters were already pretty much dragged through the mud in the first book. Most of all, the conclusion left me with so many questions. I'm just like, what does this even mean? Where do we go from here? What's gonna happen next? Give me the third book, please, so you can answer all these questions I have. All in all, I think that I would give this book a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Lastly, here I have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, which I'm sure most of you guys already know what this book is about, but if you don't, then let me fill you in. This story follows our main character Star, who witnesses her best friend being shot by a police officer. And we pretty much follow the aftermath of that event and how it affects her life. Going into this book, I knew it was going to be impactful. Just by hearing everyone's thoughts on it, I knew this was going to be a book that left an impression on me, and that it did. I think something that makes this book stand out is how real it feels, and I know that there's a reason for that, that being that this is an actual thing that happens and continues to happen, unfortunately. But not only that, I think something else that made this book feel so real were how established the characters were. Every one of the characters were fleshed out really well and had really distinct personalities, and also just had very well painted backstories. Something else that I really liked about this book is that it could have easily just focused in on that one topic, on police brutality, but it also explores a lot of other things. It explores difficult family relationships, it explores grief, drug addiction, interracial relationships, and just so many different things. My one complaint that I had with this book is that I felt like the plot just kind of felt a little messy in terms of how it was kind of all threaded together, and maybe the reason for that is because of why I liked it, and that's because it covered so many different things. I'm not 100% sure, I haven't quite put my finger on that. But this book is truly a powerful one, I'm glad it exists, and I think it's one that will continue to speak to people the more that people are exposed to it. So those are some books that I have read recently. You guys should let me know down below in the comments if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them, and if you didn't, then you should let me know down below in the comments a book that you've read recently that you absolutely loved. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I post videos frequently on this channel, so if you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, chew.